Portugal versus Argentina. Not just two national teams, not just two footballing nations with history. This is the collision of two legacies that have defined an entire generation. Because for almost 20 years, this wasn't really Portugal versus Argentina. It was Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi. And now, even as both of them edge toward the final chapters of their careers, the shadow of that rivalry still hangs over everything these two teams do. But here's the twist. This isn't about who was better between Ronaldo and Messi. This isn't about nostalgia. This is about right now. This is about what happens if Portugal and Argentina meet at the World Cup. Who wins? Who actually survives that game? Because unlike a lot of these big matchups, this one has already given us chaos. Argentina beat Portugal 2-1 in a friendly in 2014. Portugal returned the favour with a 1-0 win in 2011. And in more recent years, even when they haven't met often, the conversation has never gone away. Every time these two are mentioned together, it still feels like something massive is about to happen. And that's because these two teams represent very different ways of winning football matches. Argentina want control with emotion. Portugal want control with structure. Argentina want to feel the game. Portugal want to manage it. And if these two meet at the World Cup, it won't just be a match. It'll feel like the end of something and the start of something else. Now, before we even talk about who is more likely to win the World Cup, we need to understand what these teams actually are today, because both of them have changed. Argentina are not the same team that wandered through tournaments hoping Messi would save them. That version is gone. This Argentina is built on balance. After winning the 2022 World Cup and then following it up with another Copa America triumph, they stopped being a Messi team and became a system that Messi elevated. They defend together, they press together, they suffer together. And when the game gets tight, they don't panic. That's what made them so dangerous in Qatar. They lost their opening game, and instead of collapsing, they adapted. They became harder to break, more patient, more ruthless when moments came. Argentina are not flashy anymore. They are efficient, and that's why people trust them, because in tournament football, trust matters more than talent. But here's where Portugal enter the conversation and flip everything. Because Portugal might not have Argentina's recent World Cup trophy, but right now, they might have the most complete squad in international football. And I don't mean that as hype. I mean it literally. Look at every area of the pitch. Defence, they've got depth, physicality, and composure. Midfield, technical, creative, and capable of controlling tempo. Attack, explosive, direct, unpredictable. Portugal are one of the few teams in the world where you can genuinely say, there are no weak spots. And more importantly, there are multiple ways for them to win. That's the difference. Argentina have a very clear identity. Portugal have options. And in a World Cup, options can be the difference between going home early and lifting the trophy. Now let's talk about how these teams actually play, because this is where the matchup becomes fascinating. Argentina play like a team that knows exactly who they are. They're compact. They don't overextend. They don't rush. They wait. They let the game breathe. Then they strike when it matters. It's not always pretty, but it's incredibly effective. You saw it in the World Cup final. You saw it in Copa America. You see it every time they face pressure. Argentina don't need to dominate you for 90 minutes. They just need to win the moments. Portugal, on the other hand, can play multiple games at once. They can dominate possession. They can sit back and counter. They can press high. They can play through midfield or go direct. That flexibility makes them incredibly hard to prepare for. Because against Argentina, you know what you're getting. Against Portugal, you're guessing. And guessing in a knockout game is dangerous. Now let's address the obvious question. What about Messi? What about Ronaldo? Because even now, even at this stage, they still matter. Messi is still the brain of Argentina. Even when he's not scoring, he's dictating rhythm, creating chances, slowing the game down when it needs control. He doesn't have to run like he used to. He just has to think faster than everyone else. And he still does. Ronaldo's role has changed more dramatically. He's no longer the guy dribbling past 5 players. He's the finisher, the presence, the mentality, and maybe more importantly, he's the standard. Portugal don't just have Ronaldo as a player. They have him as a reference point. The intensity, the expectation, the refusal to accept anything less than winning. That culture matters more than people think. But here's the thing. This game, if it happens, won't be decided by Messi or Ronaldo alone. That's the biggest difference compared to 10 years ago. Back then, you could genuinely say the game would come down to them. Now, it's about the teams around them, and this is where the comparison gets interesting. Argentina's strength is cohesion. They move like a unit. They defend like a unit. They attack with purpose. There's a chemistry there that you cannot fake. You can see it in how they celebrate, how they fight for each other, how they manage games when things get chaotic. Portugal's strength is depth. They can change the game from the bench. They can rotate without dropping quality. They can bring on players who would start for most national teams in the world, and that matters late in tournaments. Because fatigue is real. Injuries are real. Momentum shifts are real. Portugal are built to handle all of that. Now let's talk about the World Cup itself, because this is where things always get complicated. Argentina come into tournaments with something that's hard to quantify: belief. After 2022, they don't just think they can win. They know they can. That changes how you approach big moments. That changes how you handle pressure. They've already climbed the mountain. Portugal are different. They come into tournaments with expectation, but also with something to prove. Because despite all their talent, despite all their depth, they haven't quite dominated a World Cup the way people expected them to. And that creates hunger. Dangerous hunger. Because a team that feels like it's underachieved often plays with more urgency, more edge, more willingness to take risks. Now imagine these two teams meeting in a knockout game. Argentina will try to slow it down, control the tempo, limit space. Portugal will try to stretch it, increase pace, create moments of chaos. That clash of styles is everything. If the game becomes controlled, tight, and patient, Argentina have the edge. If the game becomes open, physical, and unpredictable, Portugal have the edge. And here's the key point. World Cup knockout games rarely stay clean. They get messy. There are mistakes. There are deflections. There are moments where structure disappears. And when that happens, you need players who can solve problems instantly. Portugal might have more of those players right now. But we can't ignore Argentina's biggest strength. They don't beat themselves. They don't collapse. They don't lose discipline. They don't panic when things go wrong. That is incredibly rare in international football. Portugal, historically, have had moments where things unravel. Moments where control disappears. Moments where they become emotional instead of composed. Now, to be fair, that has improved a lot in recent years. But against a team like Argentina, you don't get second chances. So now we come back to the main question. Who wins the World Cup? Who wins if they face each other? For most of this discussion, it feels tight. Because it is. Argentina have the recent success. They have the chemistry. They have the experience of winning the biggest prize. Portugal have the depth. They have the flexibility. They have arguably the more complete squad. So it comes down to this. What do you trust more? A team that knows exactly how to win? Or a team that has more ways to win? Here's my answer. If this game is played 10 times, Argentina probably win a few. Portugal probably win a few. It's that kind of matchup. But if you ask me who I slightly trust more in a World Cup setting, if you ask me who I lean towards in that one game where everything is on the line, I'm going Portugal. Not by a mile. Not because Argentina aren't elite. Not because they haven't proven themselves. I'm leaning Portugal because of their margin for error. Because when things don't go perfectly, they still have solutions. Because when the game changes, they can change with it. Because over 90 minutes, and especially over a full tournament, having more ways to win matters just a little bit more. Argentina might control the game, but Portugal might control the outcome. And that tiny difference, that's why, in the end, this isn't even close enough to ignore. It's Portugal, barely.